The 27th woman rejected Alpha King Aldric Blackthorne before the entire court, and the silence that followed sounded more cruel than laughter. Lady Seraphine of House Vale stood at the foot of the obsidian throne with her white hands trembling around the silver betrothal ring. She was beautiful, noble, trained since childhood to smile through fear, yet she looked at the king as if he were a shadow with teeth. "I cannot do this," she whispered, but the words carried through the great hall of Gravemoon Citadel. "I would rather lose my title than become his queen." No one moved. No one breathed. Above them, black banners embroidered with the royal wolf hung from 50-foot arches, and every candle along the stone walls bent away from the throne as if even fire feared the man seated there. King Aldric did not rise. He did not shout. He only watched her with cold gray-gold eyes, one gloved hand resting on the carved arm of his throne, the other curled so tightly around his signet ring that the silver groaned. Then the whispers began. They moved through the court like rats beneath a chapel floor. Some said the king was cursed. Some said no woman could survive the force of his alpha aura. Others repeated the uglier rumor, the one noble families spread behind silk fans and locked doors, twisting his shame into a vulgar joke because they were too cowardly to name what truly terrified them. Aldric heard every word. He always did. Mira Ashwin heard them too. She stood near the western pillar with a tray of untouched wine in her hands, wearing the plain gray dress of palace laundry staff, invisible enough to be ignored but close enough to see what the court refused to see. The king was not amused. He was not proud. Beneath the frozen mask and the crushing power that made even seasoned warriors lower their eyes, he looked tired. Not weak. Never weak. But tired in the way a fortress looks tired after holding back winter for too many years. Lady Celestine Vere stepped forward then, all gold hair, pearl silk, and poison hidden behind a smile. "Your Majesty," she said sweetly, "perhaps the fault is not with the ladies of the realm. Perhaps some burdens are simply too much for any woman to bear." A few nobles laughed, soft and nervous. Aldric's aura rolled through the hall. It was not wind, not sound, but Mira felt it press against the world like a storm trapped inside a man. Goblets rattled. Wolves in human skin lowered their heads. Lady Seraphine stumbled back with a strangled gasp, and the laughter died at once. Mira should have dropped to her knees. Every Omega instinct in her body told her to fold, submit, disappear. Instead, she remained standing. Her heartbeat was fast, but not from terror. From sorrow. Celestine noticed. Her pale eyes sharpened, and with a lazy turn of her wrist, she knocked Myra's tray sideways. Crystal shattered across the black marble. Wine splashed like spilled rubies over Myra's sleeves. "Careless little Omega," Celestine said. "Clean it up before you embarrass the palace more than it has already been embarrassed tonight." Mira lowered herself to the floor without a word. Not because Celestine commanded it, but because survival had taught her when silence was armor. She gathered the broken crystal carefully, one piece at a time, while the court watched her humiliation with the same hunger they had shown the kings. A sharp edge kissed her finger. Only a small cut, nothing more, but the scent of her blood touched the air. The change was immediate. Aldric stood. The throne room froze. His aura, the terrible moonbane force that had been crushing the hall, suddenly softened around Mira like a storm recognizing its harbor. Every candle straightened. Every wolf turned toward her. Mira looked up from the floor, a shard of crystal in her palm, and found the Alpha King staring at her as if the whole kingdom had vanished. For the first time that night, his voice was not cold. It was shaken. "Who are you?" Mira Ashwin had survived 23 years by becoming small enough for powerful people to forget. That was the first rule she learned after the Border Patrol found her as a child near the frozen edge of Ravenshade Dominion, wrapped in a torn cloak with no family seal, no pack mark, and no memory except the sound of wolves crying under a silver moon. The palace gave her a name because every servant needed one. Ashwin, because she had been found beneath an ash tree. Mira, because an old kitchen maid said her eyes looked like a mirror that had seen too much. No one asked what she had lost. No one cared. In Gravemoon Citadel, An omega without bloodline was not a person with a past.
She was a pair of hands.
Hands to scrub stone floors until her knuckles ached. Hands to carry laundry through halls colder than winter roads. Hands to mend torn uniforms for guards who never bothered to learn her name. The other servants whispered that her wolf was broken because it rarely stirred inside her. Most omegas trembled when alphas passed too close. Mira only grew quiet. They called her the silent wolf, and sometimes they said it with pity, sometimes with disgust. She let them. Silence was safer than proving she could feel every shift in the air, every hidden emotion beneath a polished voice, every old wound people tried to bury under silk and steel. By midnight, the great hall had been emptied, but the shame of what happened still clung to the black marble. Mira worked alone with a bucket, a cloth, and a small bandage wrapped around her finger. No one had thanked her for cleaning the broken crystal. No one had apologized for laughing, but she was used to that. What she was not used to was the memory of the king standing from his throne, staring at her as though her blood had called his name.
"Who are you?"
The question would not leave her. She rubbed at the wine stain near the foot of the throne until her shoulders burned. Then the sound came from above. A low, broken growl rolled through the northern tower, deep enough to make the windows tremble. Mira froze. Every servant knew the rule. No one entered the North Tower after dark. That was where King Aldric went when the Moonbane curse became too heavy to hide. The wise ran from that sound. Mira should have run too. Instead, she followed it. Up the spiral stairs, past iron sconces and walls carved with old royal wolves, she moved slowly, one hand on the cold stone. The air grew heavier with every step. It pressed against her lungs and filled her mouth with the taste of lightning. At the top, she found a half-open door, and the Alpha King beyond it. Aldric Blackthorne stood alone in a shadowed chamber, one hand braced against a table, his crown abandoned beside a dead candle. His aura moved around him like a trapped storm, violent with restraint, not rage. He looked less like a monster than a man holding back an avalanche with his bare hands. Mira should have bowed. Instead, she set the cup of water she had carried from the hall just inside the doorway. "Your Majesty," she said softly, "you are not a monster just because they are afraid." Aldric turned. His gray-gold eyes burned through the dark. The room shook once, and the door slammed open as if the citadel itself had gasped. "You should be on your knees for my aura," he said. "Why are you still standing?" For 3 heartbeats, Mira could not answer him, because the truth sounded impossible even inside her own mind. She was still standing because his aura did not feel like a weapon to her. It felt like a locked door shaking beneath the fists of someone trapped on the other side. King Aldric stared at her from across the tower chamber, his gray-gold eyes bright in the dark, his shoulders rigid beneath the weight of a power that made the stone walls hum. "Leave," he said, but the command lacked cruelty. It sounded like warning. Mira lowered her gaze, not in surrender, but in respect. "I will, Your Majesty, but you asked me a question."
His jaw tightened.
"And you have an answer?" "No," she admitted. "Only a feeling." By dawn, that feeling had become a royal order. 2 guards escorted Mira through a passage beneath Gravemoon Citadel, down past the kitchens, past the old wine vaults, past doors marked with symbols no servant was meant to read. Beta Ronith Hale walked ahead of her in black armor, his silver hair tied at the nape of his neck, his expression carved from distrust. "You should have run when the king dismissed you," he said. Mira kept walking. "I have nowhere worth running to." Ronith looked back once, as if that answer bothered him more than fear would have. At the end of the corridor waited a circular chamber built from pale stone. Moonlight fell through a narrow opening high above, even though the sun had already risen outside. 12 black pillars surrounded the floor, each carved with ancient wolf script. High Seer Morwenna stood beside the first pillar, old, white-eyed, and wrapped in a cloak the color of ashes. "An omega in the trial ring," she murmured. "Either the moon has a sense of humor, or the old blood is waking." Mira swallowed. "What trial ring?" The doors opened behind her before anyone answered. Aldric entered without his crown. Somehow that made him more frightening. He looked less like a king performing power and more like power forced into the shape of a man. Every guard outside the chamber stepped back. Ronith bowed his head. Morwenna did not move. Aldric stopped 10 feet from Mira. "No one will touch you," he said. "No one will punish you if you fall. This ends the moment you ask it to end." Mira met his eyes. "Has anyone ever said that to you?" The question struck the chamber harder than a shout. Ronith inhaled sharply. Aldric went still. For a moment, Mira thought she had gone too far. Then the king lifted one hand, and the air changed. His moonbane aura unfolded slowly, not as the crushing storm from the court, but as a dark tide rolling across the stone. The candles along the pillars bent flat. Dust rose from the floor. Somewhere beyond the doors, a guard cursed under his breath and stumbled away. Myra's knees shook. Her bones remembered that she was Omega. Her body wanted to kneel. But beneath the force of Aldric's aura, she heard something else, faint and wounded, like a wolf pacing behind iron bars. Not rage, not hunger, loneliness. She pressed one hand over her chest and breathed through it. Aldric's eyes narrowed. Enough.
No, Mira whispered.
Your wolf is not trying to hurt me. The aura flickered. Do not pretend you understand him. I do not understand him, she said. I hear him. The whole chamber fell silent. Morwenna stepped closer, her blind eyes fixed on Mira as if she could see through skin and soul. Mira felt warmth bloom at her wrist, sudden and silver. She looked down. A crescent mark had appeared beneath her sleeve, glowing softly against her pale skin. Ronith took one step back. Aldric looked at the mark, then at Mira, and, for the first time since she had met him, the Alpha King looked afraid. Morwenna whispered, "That is not an Omega mark. That is a buried Luna bloodline." The crescent mark on Myra's wrist did not fade when the trial ended. It remained beneath her sleeve like a secret moon, soft silver against her skin, impossible to explain and even more dangerous to reveal. By sunrise, every guard in the lower corridors knew something had happened beneath Gravemoon Citadel. By noon, the servants were whispering that the silent Omega had survived the king's aura. By evening, Lady Celestine Bear had stopped smiling. Aldric did what kings did when something frightened them. He turned cold. "You will return to laundry duty," he told Mira in the Eastern Gallery, his voice flat enough to cut stone. "You will not speak of the mark. You will not enter the North Tower again. You will stay away from me." Mira stood before him in her plain gray dress, her hands folded so tightly that her fingers ached. Behind the tall windows, rain traced silver lines down the glass. "Is that an order, Your Majesty?" "Yes." "Then I will obey." Something flickered in his eyes, something almost like disappointment, though he had no right to feel it. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "You should want distance from me." Mira looked back. Aldric stood beneath the old wolf banners, broad-shouldered, powerful, untouchable, and more alone than any man in the Citadel. "Why?" she asked. His jaw tightened. "Because every woman who came close to this curse paid for it in fear. Some wept. Some fled. Some turned my name into a joke to survive their own shame. You felt what I am. Do not pretend kindness makes you brave enough to bear it." Myra's quiet broke then. Not loudly, not foolishly, but with enough force that even the rain seemed to pause. "Being gentle with a wounded king does not make me weak." Aldric went still. "And deciding for me does not make you noble," she added. For the first time, the Alpha King had no answer. High Seer Morwenna used that silence like a key. Before the next council moon, she declared, Mira must help stabilize the Moonbane aura, or the visiting pack leaders would see Aldric lose control in public. Aldric refused. Morwenna ignored him. So every night for 1 week, Mira met the king in the old observatory above the western wall. No court.
No gossip. No throne.
Only rain-dark glass, star maps, cold stone, and 10 feet of careful distance between them. Aldric learned to lower his aura one breath at a time. Mira learned to stand inside the edge of it without flinching. Some nights he failed, and the candles snapped out. Some nights, she had to grip the table until her knees stopped shaking. He always stepped back first. He always asked, "Enough?" And she always answered honestly. Slowly, the storm around him changed. It no longer pressed only with power. It carried memory. A lonely boy crowned too young. A prince taught that fear was safer than hope. A man who believed his own touch would ruin anything soft. On the seventh night, Mira reached for a fallen star chart just as Aldric did. Their hands met above the parchment. The room flashed silver. Not from lightning. From them. A thin glowing thread stretched between his palm and hers, bright as moonlight, trembling like a living thing. Aldric stopped breathing. Mira felt her silent wolf lift its head for the first time in years. Then, from the open doorway, Lady Celestine whispered, "How touching. The Monster King has found himself an Omega leash." Lady Celestine's voice turned the silver thread between Mira and Aldric into a secret exposed beneath torchlight. Mira pulled her hand back as if the moon itself had burned her, and the glowing bond vanished, but not fast enough. Celestine had seen it. Worse, she had understood what it meant. She stood in the observatory doorway with two ladies of court behind her and Lord Garin Vale at her shoulder, all of them wearing the same expression people wore when they found a weapon they could pretend was evidence. "A laundry Omega in a locked tower with a king," Celestine said, her smile soft enough to sound innocent and sharp enough to cut. How quickly shame becomes strategy. Aldric moved in front of Mira before the words finished leaving Celestine's mouth. He did not touch her. He did not need to. His body became a wall, his aura rising. Just enough to make the windows tremble in their iron frames. "Leave." Celestine's smile flickered, but she did not step back. "Gladly, Your Majesty. But the council will want to know why the curse that has terrified noble daughters for years suddenly bends for a nameless servant." That was the moment Mira saw it. Not fear in Celestine's eyes. Recognition. She knew the Moonbane curse too well. Before Aldric could answer, High Seer Morwenna appeared from the stairwell, leaning on her blackwood staff as if she had been listening from the shadows the whole time. "Because the curse was never what you told them it was," Morwenna said. The air changed. Celestine went still. Aldric turned slowly. "What does that mean?" Morwenna looked older than the stones beneath their feet. 5 years ago, House Vare offered Lady Celestine as the king's first true queen candidate. She entered this citadel wearing moon pearls and ambition. She left before dawn. Celestine's face hardened. "Careful, old woman." "No," Morwenna said. "The realm has been careful for too long." She lifted one hand, and the star map on the table shifted beneath invisible wind, revealing faded ink written in an older tongue. "Moonbane does not curse the body. It curses acceptance. It feeds on disgust, fear, and rejection. Every time someone looks at the king and sees a monster, the aura grows stronger. Every time someone chooses shame over truth, the prison tightens." Mira looked at Aldric. His face had gone colorless beneath the candlelight. For years, the court had mocked him for a vulgar rumor because mockery was easier than admitting they had wounded their own king. Celestine knew. Morwenna continued. She felt the curse answer her fear. Instead of confessing that she fled from his pain, she allowed the noble houses to turn it into gossip. Then she fed that gossip until the entire kingdom learned to laugh at what it did not understand. Aldric did not speak. The silence around him was worse than rage. Mira felt the truth pass through him like winter through a cracked door. All those rejections, all those whispers, all those women who had not merely run from the curse, but strengthened it by making him believe he was the curse. Celestine's mask broke for one breath, then returned colder than before. Even if that fairy tale were true, it does not explain her. She pointed at Mira. A silent Omega survives what noble blood cannot. A hidden mark appears on her wrist. A bond flashes in a locked room. That is not destiny. That is witchcraft. Lord Garin stepped forward, already calculating. For the safety of the throne, the girl must be examined before the council moon. Aldric's aura darkened, but Mira saw the trap closing. If he defended her too fiercely, they would call him controlled. If he stayed silent, they would take her. Celestine leaned closer, her perfume sweet as poison. Bring the Omega to judgment at sunrise. Myra's wrist burned beneath her sleeve, and far below the citadel, every royal wolf began to howl. At sunrise, Mira stood in the center of the great hall where queens were crowned, traitors were judged, and powerless girls were taught the difference between truth and authority. The same black marble she had scrubbed on her knees now reflected 100 noble faces, looking down at her as if she were a stain the palace had failed to remove. Her gray servant dress had been replaced by a plain white examination gown, not out of kindness, but because Lady Celestine wanted the court to see how little Mira owned.
No jewels.
No family crest.
No pack banner.
Only the silver crescent mark burning faintly beneath the sleeve at her wrist. King Aldric sat on the obsidian throne above her, colder than winter stone, his crown casting a shadow over eyes that had not rested all night. Mira could feel him fighting his own aura, holding it back with such force that the candles around the throne smoked instead of flaring. Lord Garin Vale stepped forward with a scroll in his hand and a verdict already written in his voice. Mira Ashwin, nameless Omega of uncertain bloodline, is accused of using forbidden influence upon the Alpha King, awakening false Luna signs, and endangering the unity of Ravenshade Dominion before the Council Moon. A murmur passed through the hall. Lady Celestine lowered her lashes with perfect sadness. "I only wish to protect the king," she said, soft enough for sympathy, loud enough for poison. "We have all seen what his curse does. If this girl can bend it, then she can bend him." Mira looked at Aldric. For one heartbeat, the whole world narrowed to the space between them. She did not need him to roar. She did not need him to break the court apart. She only needed him to say he believed her. High Seer Morwenna tried to step forward, but 2 council guards blocked her path. Beta Ronitha's hand went to the hilt of his sword, then stopped when Aldric lifted one finger. The king was trapped, and everyone knew it. If he defended Mira, they would call him enchanted. If he condemned her, they would call him wise. Celestine had built the cage beautifully. "Your Majesty," Lord Garin said, turning to the throne, "for the stability of the realm, the Omega must be removed from your presence until her blood can be fully tested." Aldric's jaw tightened. The hall trembled once. Mira heard the silent crack inside him more clearly than the stone beneath her feet. Finally, he spoke. "Mira Ashwin will leave Gravemoon Citadel." The words landed with no blood, no blade, and somehow more pain than both. Mira did not fall. She would not give the court that pleasure. She reached slowly to her collar, removed the small iron servant pin she had worn for years, and placed it on the marble floor. "I will not beg a king to believe what his wolf already knows," she said. The silence that followed was deep enough to drown in. Aldric flinched, almost invisibly, but Mira saw it. She saw the king. She saw the wounded man beneath the crown. Then she turned before her tears could betray her. The northern gates opened under a pale sky, and Mira walked out with nothing but a cloak, her name, and the silver mark burning hotter with every step. Behind her, Gravemoon Citadel rose like a black mountain against the morning. At the top of the steps, Aldric stood unmoving while nobles praised his restraint and Celestine smiled like she had won. But when Mira crossed the final line of the outer wall, something tore through the bond between them. Aldric staggered. The candles in every window went dark. Far below the stones, the royal wolves began to howl, and from the forest ahead, 3 riders wearing the crest of House Vare emerged from the mist. Mira knew the riders were not escorts the moment their horses stopped without a sound. House Vare bred its soldiers the way it bred its lies, polished enough for court and ruthless enough for dark roads. The man in front lifted his hood, revealing a silver hawk crest pinned above his heart. "Lady Celestine requests your presence," he said. Mira stepped back, and the silver mark on her wrist flared beneath her sleeve. "Then she should have asked before I left the gate." His smile held no warmth. "You misunderstand, Omega. This is not a request." The forest swallowed her before the citadel bells could ring. No blade touched her. No scream tore from her throat. One moment she was beneath the gray morning sky, and the next a charm cloth darkened her senses, turning the world into hoofbeats, pine smoke, and the cold ache of the bond stretching farther from Aldric with every mile. They carried her north through Blackfen Wood, past frozen creeks and dead winter grass, to an abandoned moon chapel built into the side of a cliff. Its broken windows glowed red beneath the rising blood moon, and inside, nobles loyal to House Vare waited in traveling cloaks, their faces hidden behind silver masks. Lady Celestine stood at the altar in white silk, looking less like a bride than a ghost pretending to be holy. "You should be grateful," she told Mira. "A nameless girl does not often get to serve a kingdom." Myra's hands were bound before her, but her spine stayed straight. "You do not want to save the kingdom. You want to wear it." Celestine's smile cracked. "I want what should have been mine before a laundry girl crawled out of nowhere and taught a cursed king to hope." She lifted an old parchment covered in moon script. "Your Luna bloodline can quiet Moonbane. Once the council sees me calm his aura, Aldric will have no choice but to make me queen." Mira felt fear then, sharp and honest, but beneath it came something stronger. Her silent wolf rose inside her, no longer asleep, no longer hiding. Back at Gravemoon Citadel, Aldric stood in the empty judgment hall while the court argued around him like flies near a dying flame. Then Beta Ronith burst through the doors holding a torn strip of Myra's cloak. House Vare took her. The room went still. Celestine was gone. Lord Garen was gone. The truth landed in the hall with the weight of a falling tower. Aldric looked at the servant pin Mira had left on the floor. All his life, people had told him restraint made him worthy of the crown. But restraint had sent her into the mist alone. His aura rose, not wild this time, but focused, ancient, royal. "Saddle no horse," he said. "Open the wolf gate." The blood moon hung over Blackfen when the chapel doors exploded inward beneath a storm of black wind and silver light. Candles flew out. Masks turned. Mira lifted her head and saw him through the rain. King Aldric Blackthorne, no crown, no throne, only a dark cloak snapping behind him and eyes bright with the kind of fury born from fear, not pride. Royal wolves poured around him like shadows given teeth, surrounding the chapel without touching a single innocent soul. Celestine stumbled back. "You cannot be here. The council will think she controls you." Aldric walked forward, and every step silenced another whisper that had ever tried to define him. "No," he said, his voice low enough to shake the altar stones. "For the first time in my life, I am not controlled by fear." His gaze found Mira, and the bond between them blazed silver across the ruined chapel. The pressure around her vanished, as if his presence had become a shield. "I should have believed you in front of them," he said. "So, I will do it now in front of everyone who tried to take you." Myra's breath trembled, but her voice did not. Aldric. The sound of his name, bare and unafraid, broke something ancient in the room. The Moonbane aura swept outward, not to destroy, but to command. Every masked noble dropped to one knee. Celestine remained standing for one impossible second, pale with fury, until the silver mark on Myra's wrist answered the blood moon and filled the chapel with light. Aldric turned toward House Vare's soldiers, his shadow stretching over the altar like the judgment of a king finally awake. "Touch my Luna." "Again," he said, "and the curse will be the last thing you fear." By dawn, the prisoners of House Vare were marched back to Gravemoon Citadel beneath a sky the color of burned silver, and for the first time in years, the court did not whisper when King Aldric entered the Great Hall. He did not drag Mira behind him like evidence. He walked beside her. That alone changed the room. The nameless Omega they had cast out returned through the same doors with rain still clinging to her pale hair, her gray cloak torn by the forest, and the silver crescent on her wrist glowing bright enough for every noble house to see. Celestine followed under guard, stripped of pearls, silk torn at the hem, her face frozen in a mask of outrage that could not hide fear. Lord Garen Vale stood near the council steps, pale and silent, realizing too late that the cage he built for Mira had become a mirror around himself. High Seer Morwenna struck her blackwood staff against the marble floor. The sound cracked through the hall like judgment. "Let the realm hear what it refused to hear," she said. Her blind eyes turned toward the council. Moonbane was never a curse of flesh. It was a curse of rejection, a royal wolf bound by fear, a king made stronger in power and weaker in hope every time his people chose mockery over truth. No one laughed now. Morwenna lifted the old parchment taken from the chapel, and the ancient moon script shimmered in the morning light. House Fair knew this. Lady Celestine fled from the king 5 years ago, then buried her cowardice beneath a vulgar rumor. She fed the court shame because shame made the curse grow. She accused this Omega of witchcraft because this Omega did what noble blood could not. She stayed. Celestine's composure shattered. She is nothing, she hissed. She is a servant with a convenient mark. Mira stepped forward before Aldric could speak. Her voice was quiet, but the hall carried it. Then let the moon decide. A tremor moved through the royal wolves gathered along the walls. Aldric turned to her, and she saw the question in his eyes. Not command, not fear. Permission. Mira gave one small nod. He released his aura. The court braced for terror. Nobles gripped their chairs. Guards lowered their heads. Candles bent low as the moonbane force rolled outward. Dark, ancient, overwhelming. Then Mira walked into it. 1 step.
2, 3.
The silver crescent on her wrist brightened, not fighting his power, but answering it. The storm around Aldric softened. The candles rose straight. The black banners above the throne stilled. For the first time, the great hall did not feel crushed by its king. It felt protected by him. A silver thread appeared between Aldric and Mira, clear as moonlight, visible to every pack leader, every servant, every noble who had ever called him monster and her worthless. The royal wolves bowed first, then Beta Roneth, then the guards. One by one, the court followed until only Celestine remained standing, trembling in the center of the hall she had tried to rule through lies. Aldric's voice was calm when he spoke, and that calm frightened the guilty more than rage ever could. House Fair is stripped of council rights, border command, and royal claim. Lord Garin Vale is removed from advisory authority pending judgment by the pack laws. Lady Celestine will never again stand in a court where her lies can endanger this kingdom. Celestine looked at Mira with pure hatred. He will tire of you. They always tire of Omegas. Mira did not look away. Then you still do not understand why you lost. Aldric descended from the throne and stopped beside Mira, not above her, not before her, but beside her. Before the full court, he took her marked wrist with careful hands and lifted it for all to see. Mira Ashwin is not my cure, he said. She is not my leash. She is the woman who saw me when the realm chose fear. Before the next moon, she will stand as Luna of Ravenshade Dominion if she chooses it freely. The final word moved through Mira like warmth after winter. Freely. Her mark flared, and the moonbane shadow over Aldric's chest faded like mist under sunrise. The court gasped, but Mira was looking at her hand, where beneath the crescent, a second symbol appeared, older, brighter, shaped like a crown made of moonlight. The crown-shaped mark on Myra's hand did not frighten Aldric the way the court expected it to. He looked at it, then at her, and for the first time since she had met him, the Alpha King smiled as if the world had not taken everything gentle from him. 7 nights later, Gravemoon Citadel opened its gates beneath a clear silver moon. No chains guarded the hall. No cruel whispers crawled beneath silk fans. The royal banners had been washed clean of old dust, and every candle burned steady along the 50-foot arches where Mira had once stood invisible with a servant tray in her hands. Now she walked the same black marble aisle in a gown of soft moon-white silk, her pale hair pinned with blackthorn flowers, her wrist uncovered, her Luna mark shining for the entire kingdom to see. She did not walk like a girl being rescued from shame. She walked like a woman returning to herself. Aldric waited at the foot of the throne, not seated above her, not hidden behind the weight of his crown. He wore black ceremonial armor etched with silver wolves, but his hands were bare, open, and still. When Mira reached him, he did not take her hand until she offered it. That small choice broke something in the watching court. Not fear, not power, something older, respect. High Seer Morwenna raised her staff and spoke the vow of the old kings, but Mira barely heard the ancient words over the quiet pull of the bond between them. It no longer felt like a thread stretched too tight across pain. It felt like a path. Aldric leaned close enough for only her to hear. "I will never let my fear choose for you again." Mira looked up at the man the realm had called impossible to love and saw no monster, no curse, no shame dressed as power. She saw Aldric. Wounded, proud, loyal, still learning how to be touched by kindness without flinching from it. "Then I choose freely," she said. "I choose you, not because you are king, because you stayed when the truth cost you your throne." His breath caught. The mate bond answered with a silver glow that rose around them like moonlight through winter glass. Across the hall, the royal wolves bowed. Then the servants. Then the nobles. One by one, every pack leader lowered to one knee before the new Luna, Queen of Ravenshade.
Dominion.
Aldric placed the crown on Myra's head with hands that trembled only once, and when the moonbane shadow finally lifted from his eyes, the entire citadel seemed to breathe for the first time in years. Later, on the northern balcony, far from the court and its polished apologies, Mira stood beside him beneath the stars. The kingdom stretched below them in dark forests, frozen rivers, and distant watchtowers glowing like fallen constellations. Aldric wrapped his cloak around her shoulders, not because she was weak, but because he had learned protection could be gentle.
"They will test you," he said.
"Let them," Mira answered. "I was invisible once. I am not afraid of being seen." He touched his forehead to hers, careful, reverent, and the bond settled between them like a promise. For one perfect moment, there was no curse, no rumor, no court, only the quiet truth of two lonely souls finding shelter in each other. Then every wolf in the valley began to howl. Mira turned toward the outer gate. Beyond the bridge, in the moonlit snow, stood a massive white wolf with eyes like ancient stars. It lowered its head to her, and a voice older than the citadel moved through the night. "At last," it said, "the first moon queen has returned."